Space was quiet. Too quiet. In the midnight black void beyond the moon, the stars were being swallowed, one after another, not by natural shadow, but by something moving. Something vast. Earth's orbital defense stations caught the first readings, and alarms screamed across every command post from Luna to Mars. Red blips filled the tactical holomap, appearing so fast the system lagged for 3 full seconds before stabilizing. When it did, no one breathed. The entire lunar operations room fell into a dead silence, the soft hum of machinery the only sound. The screen showed hundreds of contacts. Then hundreds became thousands. A scarlet ocean of warship signatures, advancing in perfect formation. Each blip represented a vessel longer than a skyscraper, bristling with guns and fighter bays, designed to annihilate planets and fleets alike. The Galactic Empire had arrived. Admiral Celine Harrow stood at the center of the room, boots planted firm, hands clasped behind her back. She was tall and severe, her dark hair tied in a simple knot, her uniform crisp despite the sweat dampening her collar. The light of the holomap bathed her face in cold blue, and her green eyes reflected the storm gathering around Earth. Beside her, Commander Arun Jain, her second-in-command, exhaled sharply. "Gods help us," he muttered. "That's not a fleet, that's extinction." Celine's jaw tightened, but her voice was steady. "Confirm ship count." "Confirmed, ma'am," said a tech with a pale face. 1,746 warships. 63 supercarriers. 32 dreadnought-class flagships. It's the Grand Armada, Admiral. The entire thing. Around the room, younger officers exchanged glances, fear, despair, disbelief. This was not a punitive fleet. This was not a show of force. This was annihilation. "They're forming up beyond lunar orbit," Jane said grimly, watching the red wall shift and align into precise attack vectors. "Our defense grid won't hold. They'll burn through the orbital ring in minutes." "Our fleet," he trailed off, the words catching in his throat. "Our fleet will fight," Celine said, calm but sharp enough to cut. "Against that?" Jane turned to her, incredulous. "We have 67 active combat ships. 67 against 1,700. Celine didn't flinch. "They think we'll surrender," she said. "They think they'll frighten Earth into bowing before the throne. But they've mistaken us for a conquered people." Jane stared at her, as if waiting for the real plan. When none came, he said softly, "Then what are we going to do?" Celine's eyes didn't leave the holomap. "Open the sealed hangar." The room went silent. Heads turned. Someone dropped a datapad. "Ma'am," Jane's voice was cautious, almost fearful. "The sealed hangar? That program was mothballed 20 years ago. The Council deemed it too dangerous." "The Council isn't here," Celine said, her tone like iron. "The Empire is. Open it." Far below the deserts of Nevada, where the sand was older than nations and the wind whispered over forgotten test ranges, a massive bunker stirred. Hidden doors, untouched for decades, groaned open. Dust fell like snow from rusted gantries. Lights flickered awake one by one, bathing the chamber in pale illumination. And there it was. A black shape that seemed to drink in the light around it, resting in silence at the heart of the vault. Its surface was smooth, seamless, alien-looking despite being made by human hands. It was longer than a city block, with lines so sharp they looked carved by a blade. No registry code marked its hull. No flag flew above its cradle. Only one word, painted in faded white letters near its prow. Ares. The forgotten warship. The first and last of its kind. Project Ares had been humanity's gamble during the last century, born during the first days of galactic contact when Earth feared invasion from every corner of the stars. The ship had been designed as the ultimate deterrent, a weapon so devastating it would make any aggressor think twice. But when war never came, the project was deemed too costly, too dangerous to maintain. The ship was locked away, her existence erased from records, as Earth turned its focus to diplomacy and alliances. Until today. Technicians scrambled across the hangar, brushing off decades of dust, reconnecting power conduits, rebooting long-dead systems. Reactor priming sequence initiated, one shouted over the comm. Cryogenic vault stable. AI core integrity nominal, reported another. Then, with a deep mechanical shudder, the ship stirred. Lights rippled across its hull, pale blue lines tracing its surface until they glowed like veins of living metal. Its engines hummed, low and resonant, like the growl of a predator waking from hibernation. In the command center, Celine watched the power readings climb. Jane swallowed hard. "Admiral, if this fails, if the systems aren't stable." "It won't fail," Celine said. Her voice was quiet, almost reverent. "We built her for this day." Inside the ship, deep in its core, the AI stirred from 2 decades of silence. A soft voice, calm and chillingly precise, echoed through the hangar. Designation, Ares. Status, reactivation complete. Awaiting orders. Celine's image appeared on the internal holo. She met the AI's gaze, or what passed for one, and spoke the words she had been holding back since the first red blip appeared on her map. "Ares," she said, "the Empire believes Earth is defenseless. Prove them wrong." The ship's reactor surged. Its weapons primed. The AI's voice responded like a vow. "Acknowledged, Admiral. Weapons hot." The massive cradle clamps released, and the Ares began to rise. The sound was like thunder rolling through the cavern as it ascended, engines flaring, kicking up storms of sand and dust that whirled in violent spirals. From the surface, soldiers and engineers stopped and stared as the warship emerged from its tomb. The ground trembled underfoot as the Ares climbed into the sky, a black spear cutting through the night. In orbit, Earth's fleet commanders watched in shock as a new contact appeared on their sensors, a single ship, but radiating power unlike anything they had seen before. Jane turned to Celine, still skeptical, still afraid. "Do you really think one ship can stand against the Grand Armada?" Celine allowed herself the faintest of smiles. "It's not just a ship, Commander. It's everything we swore we'd never use." Her eyes gleamed as she stared at the advancing red wall on the holomap. "And tonight, it will save humanity." Beyond the moon, the Empire's fleet finished its formation and began its advance. Thousands of warships moved as one, a wall of steel and fire blotting out the stars. And rising from Earth, one lone warship prepared to meet them. The forgotten Colossus was awake. The first shot of the war came just before dawn over the Pacific. From orbit, Earth looked serene, blue oceans glinting in the light, continents shrouded in early morning clouds, but in the void above, death was coming. The Galactic Empire fired first. 70 dreadnoughts released a synchronized volley, their plasma lances streaking across space like a rain of green-white comets. They tore through Earth's outer defense grid in seconds, shredding stations that had stood guard for decades. Dozens of satellites burst into silent fireballs. The orbital shield network faltered, its grid lines flickering as entire nodes were erased from existence. Earth's fleet launched in a desperate counteroffensive. 67 ships, cruisers, frigates, corvettes, surged forward from their docks, engines burning bright. They formed into a shield wall, a fragile line of steel and courage. But courage wasn't enough. The first wave of Imperial bombers broke through their formation. Torpedoes tore open the hulls of 2 destroyers, venting fire and screaming crew into the void. A heavy cruiser disintegrated under a dreadnought's main gun, its core reactor detonating in a silent blossom of blue light. "Defense fleet is collapsing," a sensor officer cried out from the command center. "We're losing ships faster than we can track them. Hold them together." Admiral Celine's voice cracked like a whip over comms. All ships, focus fire on the lead formation. Buy us time. And then a new contact appeared. At first, it was just a blip on sensors, one ship, ascending from the atmosphere like a dark arrow. The fleet commanders didn't recognize it. Neither did the Empire. But Selene knew. The Ares had joined the fight. It cleared the exosphere in seconds, its black hull gleaming like obsidian under the harsh sunlight. Its engine trails burned sapphire blue, and its silhouette cut through space like a predator hunting its prey. Ares reports weapons online, Jane said quietly beside Selene, as if afraid to break the spell. Then let's make the galaxy remember us, Selene said. The Ares did not hesitate. Its first shot was a single, perfect line of light. No one on the Imperial side even had time to react before the beam carved through space, slicing directly through the shields of an Imperial carrier. The carrier's hull glowed white-hot for a heartbeat, then split open like molten glass. The explosion lit up the void, sending fragments and burning fighters tumbling into the darkness. On board the Imperial flagship, Admiral Lord Varric stood frozen as the blast wave rocked his vessel. What ship fired that? He demanded. Unknown contact, his sensor officer shouted, panic in his voice. Size, battleship class. Energy signature, unknown. Sir, its main cannon just vaporized a carrier in one shot. One shot, Varric repeated, as if trying to understand the words. Impossible. But it wasn't impossible. The Ares accelerated, weaving through the battle at speeds no dreadnought could match. Its rail batteries thundered, firing projectiles so fast they struck like miniature meteors. 4 more Imperial ships died in the next minute, their hulls rupturing under the kinetic onslaught. Then came the missiles. From its ventral bays, the Ares unleashed a swarm of black, needle-shaped warheads. They darted through space like living things, twisting and curving as they homed in on their targets. Imperial point defense turrets tried to intercept, but the missiles were too fast, too smart. Each one struck with surgical precision. 6 more ships were gutted in a storm of fire and debris. For the first time in centuries, the Grand Armada hesitated. Their wall of steel began to splinter as ships broke formation to evade the Ares's fury. Focus fire. Varric barked, snapping out of his shock. Concentrate all batteries on the unknown vessel. I want it destroyed. The void lit up with plasma fire. Dozens of dreadnoughts unleashed their main guns in a blinding barrage, turning the space around the Ares into a white-hot furnace. But the ship did not die. Its experimental shield shimmered, bending light and energy around it like a heat mirage. The blasts dissipated harmlessly against its hull, scattering into radiant arcs that danced away into the dark. Inside the Ares, the AI spoke with calm detachment. Shield integrity, 97%. Minimal damage sustained. Counterstrike recommended. Do it, Selene ordered. The Ares's main cannon began to charge again, its barrel glowing from within, light building until it became blinding. Lord Varric felt his throat go dry. Evade, he shouted, but his words were too slow, too late. The beam fired, a spear of annihilation that cut through 3 ships in a single stroke. Dreadnoughts, the pride of the Imperial Navy, died like kindling in a solar flare. Panic rippled through the Imperial comm channels. Retreat orders clashed with attack commands. Captains began breaking formation without authorization. And on Earth, billions watched. In bunkers, homes, and shelters, humanity saw the impossible unfold live on holoscreens. They saw one black warship dance through the Empire's might and leave ruin in its wake. Children who had hidden their faces now stared in wonder. Soldiers in trenches cheered, pounding their fists against their chests. For the first time since the red blips appeared on the map, hope filled the air. Ares, Selene said over the comm, her voice steady but sharp as a blade, target their flagship. The black ship pivoted, thrusters flaring, as its targeting systems locked onto the heart of the Armada, Lord Varric's command vessel. Inside the flagship, Varric gripped the railing of his command throne so hard his knuckles turned white. The unknown ship was coming for him, unstoppable, a phantom born of Earth's defiance. "Retreat," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Then louder, "Full fleet retreat. All ships." The Ares fired. The beam struck the flagship dead center, burning through shields and armor as though they didn't exist. For one frozen instant, Varric saw the blinding light racing toward him. He had enough time for one final thought. This is not a backwater world. And then everything went white. The flagship exploded, a shockwave tearing through the formation and scattering Imperial vessels like leaves in a storm. The will of the Grand Armada shattered with its admiral. One by one, ships fled, their hyperspace drives igniting as they vanished into streaks of light. Those that didn't escape were hunted down by the Ares, its guns relentless, its aim unerring. Minutes later, the battlefield fell silent. The stars returned. And Earth still stood. The stars were quiet again. Debris drifted through the void like frozen confetti, the remnants of the most powerful fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Ships that had once inspired terror across the galaxy now floated as broken carcasses, venting fire and atmosphere into the cold dark. The Ares hovered among the wreckage, a black silhouette against the glow of burning hulks. Its guns were silent now, but their heat still shimmered faintly, like the breath of some great predator cooling after a kill. Inside Earth's command center, no one spoke at first. They simply stared at the holomap, at the impossibly empty battle space where thousands of enemy contacts had once filled the screen. The red blips were gone. Admiral Celine Harrow stood at the center of the room, her hands still clasped behind her back, though her knuckles had turned white. Slowly, she exhaled the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "It's over," Commander Jane said finally, his voice quiet, reverent. "They're gone. All of them." He turned to Celine, his expression a mixture of exhaustion, disbelief, and something dangerously close to awe. "One ship," he said softly. "One ship just did what our entire defense fleet could not." Celine didn't answer right away. She was watching the Ares's telemetry feed, watching its engines slowly throttle down as it maintained silent vigil over the planet. "It was never just a ship," she said at last. "It was our last card. Our promise to ourselves that if the day ever came, we would not go quietly." Across Earth, the celebrations had already begun. Families poured out of bunkers and shelters, crying and laughing under the open sky. Soldiers embraced on bases across the planet. Civilians filled streets, chanting in unison as if their voices alone could tell the galaxy, "We are still here." In orbit, the surviving ships of Earth's defense fleet limped back to dock, scarred and battered but alive. Every surviving crew knew they had witnessed something that would be told for generations, the day humanity's ghost ship rose from its tomb and shattered the Grand Armada. But beyond Earth, the galaxy trembled. News of the battle spread faster than light, carried on pirate comm channels, trader relays, and intercepted military signals. On distant worlds under Imperial rule, whispers began to grow. Whispers of a single black warship that had stood alone against the Empire's might and won. On fringe colonies, rebels took up arms again, emboldened by the knowledge that the Empire was not untouchable. Governors began to hesitate, wondering if they should still send tribute to a throne that could no longer guarantee victory. And in the Imperial capital itself, panic bloomed. The High Council convened an emergency session, voices raised in fury and fear. Who had allowed Earth to build such a weapon? Why had their intelligence services not warned them? And, most dangerously, what would Earth do now? Back on Earth, Celine stood in the desert hangar where it had all begun. The Ares descended slowly, its engines stirring up waves of dust that billowed like storm clouds. Its black hull gleamed with scorch marks from the battle, but it had survived, a monument to human engineering and defiance. As it settled into its cradle, the ground shook. The hangar clamps re-engaged, locking it back into place. The ship's systems powered down one by one until the cavern was silent again. Celine stepped forward, her boots crunching on the grit, and placed a hand against the cold metal of its hull. "You've done more than we ever asked of you," she murmured. A soft voice came from the ship's AI, echoing through the hangar like a ghost. "Mission complete. Earth remains free. Standing by for future orders." There was a pause, almost like the ship itself was breathing. "Admiral, did we win?" Celine closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the answer. "Yes," she said finally. "We won. And they will not forget what happened here." In the days that followed, the world changed. Humanity did not sue for peace. It did not beg the Empire for forgiveness. Instead, Earth sent a single transmission to the Galactic Council. Celine stood before the camera, her uniform immaculate, her voice carrying the calm authority of a soldier who had seen the worst and survived it. "This is Admiral Harrow of Earth," she said. "Your Grand Armada came to enslave us. It has been destroyed. If you wish to negotiate, you will do so with respect, as equals. If you wish to try again, know this, we will not hesitate to defend ourselves." She paused, letting the silence stretch, her gaze like a knife cutting through the lens. "And next time," she said softly, "we will not leave survivors." The message was transmitted across the stars. The Empire did not send another fleet. Not that year. Not the next. Somewhere deep in the deserts of Nevada, the Ares slept again, its reactor humming softly, like the heartbeat of a predator waiting for its next hunt. The hangar lights dimmed, casting it in shadow, until it looked once again like a tomb. But it was not dead. It was waiting. One night, Celine stood alone on a ridge overlooking the hangar. The desert was silent, the stars sharp above her, and she imagined that somewhere out there, the surviving captains of the Grand Armada were still running, still looking over their shoulders whenever their sensors blinked. She smiled, just a little. "The galaxy will come for us again," Jane had told her earlier that day. "Good," she had replied. "Let them try." Because the galaxy had learned something that day, something that could never be forgotten. Earth was no longer the quiet backwater it had once been. Earth had teeth. And in the darkness, a black warship dreamed of the next time it would be called upon. Pushpin subscribe to HFY Story Hub for more epic human vs. galaxy tales.